Donald Trump has faced ongoing embarrassment since his summit in Alaska with Vladimir Putin. That day exposed his weaknesses. How quickly he gave in, struggled to answer basic questions, and even appeared unsteady on Air Force One. Since then, the situation has only worsened, with the Kremlin releasing a leaked video that highlights his lack of strength. We'll dive into that video and the broader impact it has on Trump's image. But first, if you enjoy this content, please leave a like and hit subscribe. It really helps support the channel. Before we get to the Kremlin video, it's also important to look at the broader struggles within his administration and the weak responses we've seen from leaders like Marco Rubio following the failed summit.
Why not impose more sanctions on them and force them to agree to a ceasefire instead of accepting that Putin won't agree to one?
Well, first, I think that's something that a lot of people go around saying that I don't necessarily think is true. I don't think new sanctions on Russia are going to force them to accept the ceasefire. They're already under very severe sanctions. I think that should be, you could argue that could be a consequence of refusing to agree to a ceasefire or the end of hostilities. But there is no evidence that more sanctions, because sanctions take months and sometimes years to bite, and we may very well wind up in that place. I hope not, because that means that peace talks failed. But we have to give every opportunity for peace a chance in this particular case, and that's what we're trying to do here. And so those options remain to the president. The minute he takes those steps, all talk stop. The minute we take those steps, there is no one left in the world to go talk to the Russians and try to get them to the table to reach a peace agreement. So that moment may come. I hope not, because I hope we get a peace deal.
So, Mr. Secretary, a lot of people have heard President Trump threaten sanctions for months, and they are wondering, are they empty threats? Why hasn't he punished Putin to date for this war since taking office?
Well, again, every single sanction that was in place on the day he took over remained. And the impact of all those sanctions remain. You know, when the Russians landed in Alaska, they were there to refuel. They had to offer to pay in cash to refuel their airplanes because they can't use our banking system. They face consequences every single day. But the bottom line is that has not altered the direction of this war. That doesn't mean those sanctions are inappropriate. It means it hasn't altered the outcome of it. And here's what we do think is important, and that is that we end this war. To end this war, you have to be able to engage with the Russians. As much as people may not like it, as distasteful as people may find it, the only way to end this war is to get the Russians to agree, as well as the Ukrainians, but the Russians to agree to a peace deal. And the minute you issue new sanctions, your ability to get them to the table, our ability to get them to the table, will be severely diminished. That moment may arrive, but when it comes, what you're basically signaling is there is no opportunity for peace at this point. So just let's put on more sanctions and allow more people to get bombed and more people to be killed, and that's what we're trying to stop.
To see how willing Donald Trump is to defer to Vladimir Putin, you don't even need to focus on his words. Just look at the way members of his administration praise him on the Sunday shows. It's clear that the same man who insisted on imposing tariffs cares very little about sanctions on Russia. When his officials discuss tariffs, they talk tough. We're making people pay. America is taking a stand. But when it comes to Putin, their tone changes. They sound hesitant, even intimidated. Is this the image of America we want on the world stage? Many would say no. And it's this dynamic that makes a certain troubling stat especially important in the video we're about to review.
For our viewers, it shows that Russian attacks on Ukraine have nearly doubled since President Trump came into office. And in fact, in July, Russia launched more than 6,000 missiles and drones. That's the highest amount of attacks since the war began.
I don't know how Donald Trump can continue to push the lie that the war in Ukraine wouldn't have started in 2022 if he was president. Then when he's president now, and the war is still ongoing, and Russian aggression only increases every single day. But that is the lie that Donald Trump wants you to buy into. But it's getting more difficult for him to sell that every single day, especially as the Kremlin does everything it possibly can to humiliate not just Donald Trump, but our entire country, recognizing the weakness of his leadership. In the latest example, a leaked video out of the Kremlin is one of the worst I've seen yet. Flag-waving Russian forces trolled Trump after crumbling to Putin. Russian forces were spotted mocking Trump's capitulation to Vladimir Putin during their peace summit by attaching American flags to their vehicles as they rode into battle in Ukraine. Video footage first shared by Kremlin propaganda network RT showed Russian troops cruising into battle in a captured American M113 APC, which they described as a trophy while flying both the US and Russian flags in tandem. You can see the video right here with a tank displaying both the Russian and American flags. How should this be understood? Russian propagandists are showing a video where Russian equipment goes on the attack with flags of Russia and the USA, said the head of Ukraine's presidential office and Vladimir Zelensky's right-hand man. In fact, Russians are using United States symbols in their own terrorist aggressive war with the killing of civilian people. Maximum audacity, he added. The move comes just hours before President Trump meets with Zelensky and other European leaders for high-level peace talks at the White House following his summit with Putin in Alaska last Friday. While little official progress was made during the meeting, Trump has since been parroting Russian talking points and putting pressure on Zelensky to accept a peace deal, which many view as overly favorable to the invading forces, demanding Ukraine cede its occupied territory to Russia in exchange for freezing the front lines. How can any American who cares about our country and its values watch Russian and American flags flying side by side while a brutal offensive is carried out against the Ukrainian people, our allies, and not feel alarmed? It's a disturbing image, one that Donald Trump seems unconcerned with. For him, it's all about self-interest, like chasing a Nobel Peace Prize or trying to distract from past scandals. At this point, his team seems willing to do anything, even circulating a fake AI-generated letter from Melania. It's one of the most bizarre moments in these negotiations, and Tim Miller has broken it down, highlighting just how surreal it all is.
A combination of Ned Flanders' wife, Mrs. Flanders, and, the appeals to the Grinch for his heart to grow 3 sizes larger. Please, Mr. Grinch, don't you have a heart? It's just like that's the level of argumentation here. If you're going to make an appeal, I don't understand why you would make an appeal from a blood and soil nationalist to a blood and soil nationalist that he should not care about the geography in which these children are born. He should care about their dignity and their human dignity equally. Putin doesn't care about the human dignity equally if people, no matter what their geography is. He does not think, actually, that each generation's descendants begin their lives with an equal purity that stands above geography. He has an extremely acute interest in geography, as a matter of fact. And so does your husband and his fucking white nationalist cadre of goons. So anyway, it's a silly little letter from Melania Trump. She's a silly little person, though, so it's not that surprising she wrote a silly little letter. But I felt it was worth sharing because it doesn't seem like they hang out that much, but I am pretty sure that the Trump team would have oversight over whether something like this would go out. And it betrays a weakness about their status in their negotiations with Putin.
This is truly embarrassing. Is this how weak Donald Trump has become? He's sending something like an AI-generated Melania letter to do his bidding, trying to push for a Nobel Peace Prize he doesn't deserve. The letter is clearly fake, just nonsense, all for show. They don't actually care. Though maybe Melania does, given Trump has suggested she's frustrated with his inability to stand up to Putin. This is just another example of the weakness that defines this administration. Listen to Marco Rubio getting grilled. It says it all.
The president is the only leader in the world. If this is possible, he's the only one that can help make it happen.
Well, he's got the leverage over Vladimir Putin if he wanted to crush his economy or at least do more damage to it. But you have held off on those secondary sanctions. President Trump told Fox News His advice to President Zelensky is make a deal. Russia's a very big power, and they're not. You know, there's concern from the Europeans that President Zelensky is going to be bullied into signing something away. That's why you have these European leaders coming as backup tomorrow. Can you?
No, it isn't. That's not why they're coming
them?
as back. That's not true. No, but that's not that's not true. They're not coming here tomorrow to keep Zelensky from being bullied. They're
well,
not
that
coming.
February
in fact,
Oval Office
they're coming
meeting
here tomorrow
in front of television cameras, where President Zelensky.
Do you know how many meetings we've had
down.
since then?
Oh no, I know, and I was just up in Alaska watching the one with Vladimir Putin, where a red carpet rolled out.
No, but it was Zelensky. We've had more
different.
meetings. We've had one meeting with Putin and like a dozen meetings with Zelensky. So, but that's not true. They're not coming here tomorrow to keep Zelensky from being bullied. They're coming here tomorrow because we've been working with the Europeans. We talked to them last week. There were meetings in the UK over the previous weekend.
And they said President Trump was going to demand a ceasefire
as early as Thursday. No. But you said that they're coming here tomorrow to keep Zelensky from being bullied. They're not coming here tomorrow. Oh, this is such a stupid media narrative that they're coming here tomorrow because Trump is going to bully Zelensky into a bad deal. We've been working with these people for weeks on this stuff. They're coming here tomorrow because they chose to come here tomorrow. We invited them to come. We invited them to come. The president invited them to come.
But the president told those European leaders last week that he wanted a ceasefire. The president went on television, said he would walk out of the meeting if Vladimir Putin didn't agree with one. He said there would be severe consequences if he didn't agree to one. He said he'd walk out in 2 minutes. He spent 3 hours talking to Vladimir Putin, and he did not get one. So there's
because
some
obviously
messages.
things happened during that meeting. Well, because obviously look, our goal here is not to stage some production for the world to say, oh, how dramatic, he walked out. Our goal here is to have a peace agreement, to end this war, okay? And obviously we felt, and I agreed, that there was enough progress, not a lot of progress, but enough progress made in those talks to allow us to move to the next phase. If not, we wouldn't be having Zelensky flying all the way over here. We wouldn't be having all the Europeans coming all the way over here. Now understand, and take with a grain of salt, I'm not saying we're on the verge of a peace deal, but I am saying that we saw movement, enough movement to justify a follow-up meeting with Zelensky and the Europeans, enough movement for us to dedicate even more time to this.
These people aren't tough. Just targeting marginalized groups or acting flashy at events doesn't make someone impressive or admirable. And just because Pete Hegseth does keg, stands in the Pentagon, doesn't mean he's truly a bro in any meaningful sense. We'll keep calling this out every day on this show. If you want to support our work, hit subscribe, leave a like, and if you made it to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Until next time, I'll see you soon.